Hi again, Mark here from talkingbass.net. This week I'm going to be giving you a really quick and easy tip for understanding scales a little better by bringing the appropriate chord or arpeggio into play. This is especially good for understanding how modes work. Remember, you can download the lesson material from talkingbass.net, just click the link in the info below. There's a PDF with the sheet music and tab for all the examples in this lesson, and while you're there, be sure to check out the lesson map where you'll find hundreds more free lessons just like this one, so go check it out. So I'll very quickly just show you the tip that I have and then expand on it a little so you understand why it's so important. Basically, for any scale that we play, we're going to finish off with the tonic arpeggio. Now when I say the tonic, I just mean the root note. So if we play a C major scale, C is the tonic. And for every scale, we can create an arpeggio on that tonic. You can actually create an arpeggio or chord on every note of the scale, but we're just going to be looking at the root note for now. Now I know this might sound a little bit confusing to some of you, but bear with me, it'll all make sense in a second. So as a simple example, here's a C major scale. Okay, and now here's the C major arpeggio. Okay, so in practicing that scale, I'd play it like this. Okay, so we play the scale up and down, and then we play the arpeggio. Now, don't worry, I'll be showing you why we play a major arpeggio there in a second. But before that, I'll just give you a taste of some other scales just as examples. So here we have a G natural minor scale. And for that, we would play a G minor arpeggio. Here's an E flat Dorian scale. And for that, we would play an E flat minor arpeggio. Here's an F sharp mixolydian scale. And for that we would play an F sharp major arpeggio. And here's a D flat Locrian scale. And for that we would play a D flat diminished arpeggio. Okay, so for any scale that we choose to play, there's an appropriate arpeggio that goes along with it, a tonic arpeggio. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So how do we work out what arpeggio it is that we need to play? Well, if you have a good knowledge of your intervals, arpeggios and chord construction, you should just be able to see the arpeggio in there because of the intervals in the scale. With the C major scale, we just look at the root note, then the type of third we have and the type of fifth, so we get a major third and a perfect fifth, and here presto we have a major arpeggio. But if you're a little unsure in those areas, one thing you can do is actually look through the scale, playing a note and then skipping a note as you go. In case you didn't realise, arpeggios are just chords played one note at a time, and chords are generally made by stacking thirds one on top of one another. So if we look at that C major scale again, and we were to number those notes in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then we're back to 1, we can see 1 is C, then we work up, D is 2 and E is 3, that's the third. Okay, so first, second, third, so C to E is a third. Okay, so have a look at what we've done there. In that scale, we've played the note C, then we've skipped the second, the D, and then played the E. That's the third. So play a note, skip that note, play a note. Okay? So what we can then do is just carry on with that process. So we get to the E, then skip the F, which is there, play the G. Okay? So we end up with C, E, and G. And that's our tonic arpeggio. That's actually a triad, so that's a 3-note chord. 1, 2, 3, 3 notes there. So once again, let's just look at what I did there. We had the C major scale, because that's what we're using as our basis here for the chord, for the arpeggio. And then we just play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note. Play the C, skip the D, play the E, skip the F, play the G. That's it. Play a note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note. Okay, just that process. Okay, so C, E, G, and if you have any idea on the arpeggios, if you know your arpeggios, you'll instantly recognize that as a major arpeggio. First, major third, and perfect fifth. Okay? So now let's try applying that method to a different scale. So this time we'll try a C natural minor. Okay? So the scale will be C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. Okay? So just in terms of the fingering there, we have 3rd fret, 5th fret, 6th fret on the A string, 3rd fret, 5th fret, 6th fret on the D string, and then 3rd fret, 5th fret on the G string. Very popular scale there. So, now let's find that tonic arpeggio. So, we start with the root note, C, and then we work up through the scale, skip the D, play the E flat, so that's the 3rd, then skip the F, play the G. Okay, so we've got root, 3rd, 5th. Just so happens that we've got the root note, the minor 3rd this time, and then the perfect 5th. So that is a minor arpeggio. So, as long as you know your arpeggios, you'll recognize that pattern, okay? So, C natural minor scale, C minor arpeggio. Now, as I mentioned, the arpeggios that we used in those examples were all triads, 3-note chords, but we can extend this exercise to include the 7th chords as well. All we have to do is add another 3rd. So let's have a look at C major again, the C major scale. Okay, and let's go through with that method again. C, skip the D, play the E, skip the F, play the G, then we skip the A and play the B. So we have C, E, G, B. Root note, major 3rd, perfect 5th, and major 7th. That is a major 7 arpeggio. So once again, we can play up through the scale, back down, and then up through the arpeggio. Okay, so that's all you have to do. That's the exercise. Play up through the scale, and then play up through the arpeggio. Now, once again, let's try applying that method to the C natural minor scale. So, once again, there's the C natural minor. Let's work up through the 7th arpeggio. So we have root note, then we skip the 2nd there to the 3rd. So we've got the E flat, skip the F, there's the G, skip the 6th, the A flat there, play the B flat, the 7th. So root note, minor 3rd, perfect 5th, and minor 7th. So again, anybody that knows their arpeggios will notice that that's a C minor 7 arpeggio. You can also put the octave on top there. And so if you ever see a C natural minor scale, you can play up through it and then up and down through the C minor 7 arpeggio. So obviously you need to understand your arpeggios to really get the most out of this exercise. And luckily I've got a whole load of lessons devoted to them over at talkingbass.net. So just go to the lesson map and open up the Music Theory for Bass series and you'll find a set of lessons on intervals and chord construction that covers absolutely everything you need to know. And they're all here on YouTube as well. So why is this so important? Well, bass players often fall into the trap of thinking too melodically. And I know what you're thinking, bass players play bass lines, not melodies. But a bass line is a melody. It's a melodic line. Even if it's only one note, it's still a melodic line working to outline that harmony. And remember that music is made up of 3 main constructive ingredients: melody, harmony, and rhythm. Every instrument is going to utilize all of those 3 aspects of music in varying degrees because they're all pretty much reliant on each other. For instance, you can't have melody or harmony without rhythm. Without getting too caught up in all of the terminology, harmony is basically the chord progression. If we use painting as an analogy, the harmony is the background of our musical picture upon which everything else sits. So any melodies placed onto the picture are related to that harmony. So if we now go back to bass players, if we look at bass lines or anything on bass, we can easily be drawn into seeing them melodically and, how they relate to things like scales. So we might play a bass line and think, oh, it's based on a mixolydian scale or a pentatonic scale or something like that. Or if you don't know any scales, you might just see fretboard shapes, but you're still looking at the bass line from a melodic standpoint. But it's much more important to understand how things actually relate to the harmony, to that background. Bass players are the glue that hold the band together. We link all three aspects of music together in equal measure. We work with the drummer to outline the rhythmic feel of a tune, and we link that to the pianist or guitarist by outlining the chord progression. And to outline the chord progression, we have to understand the harmony. And learning scales just as these linear melodic lines is pretty much pointless if we don't understand how they relate to the music from a standpoint of harmony. So as one last exercise that should help with your understanding of modes and where you might use them, we can try working through the modes of a major scale using our method of playing up and down the scale and then playing the tonic arpeggio. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole description of modes here because I've covered it in other lessons, and if you don't understand that sequence of scales, then check out the 2 big modes lessons that I have on the lesson map at talkingbass.net. Also, remember the downloadable lesson material shows this exercise, so you can just work through them from there if you have any problems. So let's just work through the modes of C major, starting each mode from a root note on the A string. So we begin with C major or C Ionian. Then we have D Dorian. Then we have E Phrygian. Then F Lydian. Then G Mixolydian. Then A Aeolian or natural minor. And finally B Locrian. And then we're back to C major. Okay, so that's the modes of C major. So now we can just work through that same exercise, but this time we'll work up and down each scale and then up and down the tonic arpeggio for each mode. Now, I'm not going to work through each one and deconstruct them to work out, the arpeggio with player note, skipper note and all that stuff. I'm just going to play through the exercise so you can see what they are. And you can also work through the lesson material and see them there. And I'm going to play the 7th arpeggio. So for each one, I'll play the scale and then the tonic 7th arpeggio. Okay? So we begin with C major or C Ionian scale. And then we have the C major 7 arpeggio. Then we have the D Dorian scale. And then the D minor 7 arpeggio. Then we have the E Phrygian scale. And the E minor 7 arpeggio. Then we have F Lydian and the F major 7 arpeggio. Then we move up to the G Mixolydian scale and the G dominant 7 arpeggio. Then we have the A Aeolian scale or A natural minor and the A minor 7 arpeggio. Then we have the B Locrian scale and the B minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio. And then we're back to the C major scale. So this should give you a good idea of how modes are used. We have a set of chords in the key, that's the arpeggios that we played, and the modes are simply the scales that go with each chord. So for chord 1, we had the C major 7 chord and the C major scale. For chord 2, we have the D minor 7 chord and the D Dorian scale. For chord 3, we had the E minor 7 chord and the E Phrygian scale, and so on. We're working through the modes of the key, but it's vital that you learn the arpeggios or chords that go with them as well. So hopefully that'll shed a little light on scales and how they relate to chords. Remember to like this video if it's helped, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.